Yo, what's going on guys? HyperX here. Welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. And ahead of the digital event dropping next week, getting some brand new information, and also of course the game itself not being that far away, today I want to talk about 10 features that I would like to see in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Some of these are returning features that we've seen in previous games, old and new, and some of them are of course just things in general we would like to see. I don't imagine all of them, or necessarily any of them, are going to make it, but regardless, it's still fun to talk about. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Let me know in the comments down below, what would you like to see in Sunbreak? What improvements would you expect or hope to see? And of course, don't forget to keep it locked, because as and when that brand new information drops next week from the digital event, we will have you covered straight away. So to begin with, in at number 1, more and better turf wars. Turf wars are of course something that are fun to spectate. World had some incredible ones. It had so much variety, so many things just to sort of watch. They were a sheer spectacle. And while Rise definitely does have some turf wars, they were definitely pretty few and far between. In fact, there were of course some hyper-specific interactions with some monsters, which definitely were a spectacle. But when you think about just how many there were in, say, Monster Hunter World and Iceborne versus how many there are in Rise, it is definitely a much slimmer selection. So it would really be cool to sort of see them expand on this and build on this, especially given there are some fantastic monsters in Rise, so it would be cool to sort of see this much more frequently. It makes hunts more engaging, it's just an enjoyable thing to see. Next up, of course, more Silkbind skills. This, of course, is gonna happen. They have said they will be new Silkbind moves. We have seen some of them already, and of course, they have more yet to reveal. I just want to see a load more. When you think about sort of the range that were available in base Rise, if we have that again on top in Sunbreak, that would be fantastic. And from some of the gameplay they have shown so far, it does seem like for a lot of them, they are definitely looking back to, say, Hunter arts in Generations and basically bringing them into Rise and Sunbreak, or at least sort of, you know, based on the sort of original movement, the original animation, maybe changing them up a little bit. We have, of course, seen some of those familiar movements. In fact, in one of the recent sort of Japanese trailers, we even saw something that looks akin to, say, Chaos Oil for Sword and Shield. So even if the behavior changes slightly, it would definitely be cool to see some of those return. Honestly, I just love the way that they sort of change the way you play. And of course, towards the end of Rise, where the sort of meta settles, people tend to sort of choose their favorites. So it would definitely be nice to have a massive selection to mix things up. Following from there, I would definitely love to see more and again better environmental traps. If you guys cast your mind back to World, some of the sort of really cool fun interactions were definitely ways to shoot down elements of the environment to land on monsters to deal some pretty significant damage. When you think about, say, some of the spikes in the ceiling, when you're fighting things like Valhazak, stuff like that, when you drop them down and they of course deal some massive damage, they were definitely really fun to play around because of course if you factor that into a genuine part of your hunt, they added a sort of more interactive dynamic. Now of course Rise does have a few of those. There are of course walls that you can throw them into, or you think about the desert where you can disrupt the rock and it basically turns into a trap. But again, there are not that many, so seeing this expanded on would be fun. Of course, one of the main things I do definitely want to see is a better endgame loop. Again, I did enjoy Rise. Rise is still to this day one of my favourite Monster Hunter games, but regardless, it definitely does suffer from a lacking endgame loop. Farming materials to stuff into the pot to hope you get some good charms is really not a rewarding experience, and even when you factor in some of the things like rampages, or of course some of the Apex monsters, even those, while they were fun to fight, they weren't really that rewarding given they didn't give you too many great things to build. Now of course, if you look back to, say, Monster Hunter games in the past, typically the first iteration is often somewhat lacking in that regard, and then of course when the G-Rank Ultimate expansion comes in, they do definitely flesh that out. So I do hope they've taken some of those learnings from Rise and hopefully sort of give us more things to work towards. For example, taking the Apex monsters and giving us unique armor sets for them would be fantastic. Some of those fights are really fun in Rise, but the fact they have no armor sets and no weapons really doesn't make them that compelling to hunt. Again, more rewarding drops or more sources of things like charms would of course also be a fantastic thing to pursue. So basically just give us something that is actually fun to grind towards the end of the game. Basically, I just want to play more Monster Hunter, so let me play. On top of that, of course, more unique armor and weapon skills. Again, we have got lots of cool armor sets in Rise, but when you think back to some of the previous armor sets we've had, we definitely have had some pretty awesome unique abilities in the past. Thinking about, say, Seregios with the weapons, when you can roll and they sharpen. There are definitely some fun interactions, but I feel like there haven't been as many of those hyper unique abilities that really stand out for quite a while, and that definitely sort of often gives people a reason to gravitate towards a set that maybe they might not necessarily normally choose if it's just, say, on a damage purpose. So I do think it'd be cool if they could build on that a little bit more, give us some more exciting set bonuses, some more weapon skills, some more things that basically just are unique. Of course, we do have the ramp up system of weapons in some rounds, so whether they work them into that or whether they work them in natively does of course remain to be seen, but that would still be nice. In addition to that, it would also be cool to see world-style investigations. Now I know the world-style investigation system wasn't perfect, but it did at least give people something to pursue. In World, using investigations was a fantastic way to get some decorations. Admittedly, we can craft decorations this time around, so the need is a little bit different. And while some of the investigations did, of course, massively bloat your UI, some of them were quite repetitive, it was at least something that you could unlock that was potentially different, and at least give you something additional to do towards their endgame loop. So while the system was not perfect, it was definitely better than not having it, and if they could sort of take that and refine that a little bit and give us a sort of a investigation style gameplay mechanic in Sunbreak, that would definitely give us more things to pursue, especially if they did result in meaningful rewards. Additionally, weapon charms, I'd like to see them make a return. Maybe it doesn't make as much sense in Rise, given that of course the graphics are not quite as good as, say, World, so maybe you don't have as much visual clarity, but I did just really like the weapon charms. I appreciate they were more sort of DLC focused stuff, a lot of them were sort of purchased, but some of them could still be earned, and just having those things that you could just sort of attach to the end of your greatsword, the end of your weapon, and have them just swing around when you are fighting, even though you might not see them too much, I just really liked it as an additional layer of personalization. Another thing I would love to see is an improved photo mode. Of course, we do have the ability to, you know, take out the owl and fly around and have that camera, but it is pretty limited. For one thing, you can't turn the HUD off completely, so if you do want to take some really nice photos, it is still a little bit limited, especially if you want to use it more sort of creatively. But if you think about how some of the games like Ghost of Tsushima had a fantastic photo mode with some incredible filters, maybe that is asking a little bit too much, but having a bit more flexibility in the photo mode and just sort of expanding that a little bit more would be really nice. Something else that I really hope we see this time around are better collaborations and event quests. Of course, event quests have always been a staple of the Monster Hunter series, and prior to Rise, they were always pretty incredible. Now, Rise definitely had a pretty slow start on the event quest front. Towards the end of it, they did start to get some pretty cool collaborations. You think about Sonic, Akuma, Okami, things like that, but they did take quite a while to get there, and given that, of course, Rise is, I mean, admittedly it's on PC, but it's also on Nintendo Switch, we are still missing some noteworthy Nintendo collaborations that I still think it would be really nice to see them hit up. And in addition to this, it'd be nice if some of those event quest armor sets actually were more meaningful. A lot of the time when those quests would come around, you would basically just farm it so you could have the layered set, because the armor set was so lackluster, it just wasn't worth your time. And I don't expect every single armor set to be game changing, but at the same time, when every single time an event quest comes around and the armor set is just lackluster, it makes it less compelling to want to go and farm it. Now, this last one, I don't expect it to happen in Sunbreak, given of course the infrastructure is already in place, but I would still like to see larger lobbies again. I know of course for the longest time in Monster Hunter we have built it on 4-player hub lobbies, but I did actually kind of miss the 16-player lobbies of World. I know sometimes you might go in and of course there will be a mismatch where some people will be on a quest, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to partner up with people, but at the same time, from a social point of view, it was quite nice to have bigger lobbies where your friends could just hang around and just sort of, you know, mess around with mini games. Speaking of which, it'd be nice if they brought back some of the mini games. Why can we not do arm wrestling anymore? I honestly really miss that. But for the time being, that is pretty much it. I will say, as a personal note, I really want them to bring back oils, specifically for Sword and Shield. I am, of course, the Sword and Shield guy. I love that weapon, and oils were fantastic. But anyway, that's it for the time being. There are a few things I would love to see return in Monster Hunter for Sunbreak. Again, I don't expect any or most of those to make it, but it would still be cool. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you missed some of our recent videos, be sure to check out one of these ones, and be sure to keep it locked for plenty more Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak.